If I'm Shikamaru or I'm Kashin Koji, the last thing you want to do is give someone like Amado a piece on the playing board that allows him to believe that he now has an advantage or he now has the one up, right? And we say all of this to say, because we know previously in the arc ending off the Mamushi invasion, Kashin Koji essentially came out of the closet. He was more open, not only about his identity, but essentially how he's able to obtain and get all of this information regarding the Shinju, regarding the Ten Tails. We have figures in the Hidden Leaf Village now privy to the idea and to the fact that Kashin Koji can look into the future. He has future visions, he has future sights, and this knowledge stays with him regardless if the future is on track or not. Now, for someone like Amado, who we know his story throughout Boruto as an entirety, and the lengths that he's willing to go to in order to revive his daughter Akebi, who I already keep saying every time I bring up her name, every time she's brought up, I'm gonna mention it. Princess Akebi Otsutsuki, that's the identity she's gonna embody whenever she's revived. But all of that aside, right? He's been trying to revive his daughter for years and years and years on, and not just in story, but in terms of like entirety of his life, his later years of his life, right? Spending the majority, the better part of the last 20 years trying to figure out a way to revive his daughter. And now he figures out that one of his creations has this ability that sees multiple futures, all possible futures. And not only that, but whenever something occurs that changes it, he will then see the new set of futures that are not essentially set in stone, but could potentially happen down the line to come. So for Amado, the wheels obviously started turning. So it makes sense as to why he called this guy KAWAKI into the lab. Now, it can be a curveball. It could definitely be a curveball, but I feel like we're going to have a whole lot to discuss regarding the entire situation. So before we get further into the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, smash that like button, share the video with your friends. It's your boy Black Uchiha. It is time to start talking that Boruto 2 Blue Vortex greatness. Now, I like something that Ikimoto actually decided to do when Amado approached KAWAKI, because he basically flat out spelt it out in our faces. Now, as I just stated, it could be a curveball. It could simply be a run-up or follow-up in terms of KAWAKI's body, in terms of KAWAKI's power, in terms of his stabilizer, because I'm still hanging on the idea, what was essentially KAWAKI doing prior to his involvement in the Mamushi battle, in the Mamushi invasion arc? We saw him laying on the table. Was it simply just a checkup on the modifications Amado has already made, or was his modifications still incomplete, still in a stasis phase or stasis period? And we see how he shut down towards the end of the arc, overheating and overexerting his power beyond his body's capabilities. So it could simply be Amado figuring out a solution. We know it's not essentially the entirety of the case, because Amado just came from hearing Kashin Koji break down step by step how his ability essentially work in order to see the futures, predict the futures, and retain this information despite the future going against what he saw. So it can't simply just be Amado calling KAWAKI in, right, just to say, oh, this, that, and the third is going on with your body. This is what happened during the Mamushi arc. We already understand the severity in that case, but due to the current circumstances and the visual aspects Ikimoto emphasized, we know for a fact it's in relation to Kashin Koji's basically spilling out all of this information. Now, Amado has new details that he can place onto the chessboard in terms of his overall and ultimate goal. I've said it time and time again, if you heard me mention it in the past, I believe Boruto, especially 2 Blue Vortex, throughout its entirety in its run, it's essentially been a grandiose chess match between Kashin Koji, Amado, and Shikamaru. And as of late, the board has been heavily shifted onto Kashin Koji and Amado's side, particularly headbutting and going against each other. Now, in this case scenario, Amado is able to confirm not only one of his cyborgs is essentially alive after all this time thinking he's dead, but he's alive and he has an ability that he never essentially was able to have in the prior times in the past. So now Amado can collect so much data in terms of not just, you know what I'm saying, Kashin Koji and the fact that he's come back, but the potential for other cyborgs or even someone like Delta, because at the time we understood, Amado thought cyborgs along the line of Delta, Boro, and Kashin Koji particularly were not gonna awaken any Shinjutsu due to their Shibai cells, and it just occurred in certain anomalies like Ada, like Gaming, and like this guy, Code. So now that he understands this guy can see the future, albeit Kashin Koji didn't come out and say this is a Shibai cell ability, it's something that Amado put 2 and 2 together. This is an ability he has awakened since the last time we saw him, and it has to have been an ability he has awakened due to the fact that the distress that possibly occurred during his Ishiki battle, post Ishiki battle. However, the fact remains that this guy is now able to see the future, so that must explain why he's alive. So from Amado's perspective, he has to put all of these pieces together and basically understand, well, if he's able to survive, because there's no chance in hell he could have beaten Ishiki on his own, it has to have been because he saw so many futures. It has to have been because he had this ability to see so many possible futures and take the best case course that he deemed was necessary. So from Amado's perspective, all of these things are aligned, especially in a scenario where now he's already battling against his memories. He's using and operating with his science, with all of his signature moves on all of his work and data, particularly KAWAKI and his karma, as facts to hold on to in terms of how he actually remembers the world over the last 3 years. And he understands, okay, my memories have been tampered and altered with, and he already basically came to the conclusion years ago he's playing or tampering with in the domain of God. So this guy Amado understands it's above him essentially. However, he's still trying to manipulate or wiggle around a way to have control, to basically use it as puppet strings. Basically, if he can't attain the power himself, can he figure out a way to manipulate it or control it for his own benefit? So when we see Amado approach KAWAKI, he's approaching him with a scientific ninja tool, albeit specifically a toad, and we know the toad is basically Kashin Koji's trademark in his communications and his fighting styles and his jutsus and everything that Kashin Koji does, reverse summoning. He uses these scientific ninja tool toads, and we understand Amado is essentially the original creator of these toads, yet we see Amado for the first time in TVV actually put his toads to usage. So that is the author telling us that he's about to have a conversation, Amado being with KAWAKI, in regards to the things that he just heard from this guy Kashin Koji. Now, in order to basically get KAWAKI on board, how can you figure out a way to do that? By manipulating the fact that, oh, this guy, he has a way to know future events, to understand how things will play out and what actually will come to pass. So in Amado's case, he can make an argument for KAWAKI. He will know a way to basically figure out how much stronger you've gotten in the future and what your potential power actually is. Whatever I done in the future to have your body fixed, Kashin Koji may very well know right now. And that is all KAWAKI will need to hear to figure out a way to get Kashin Koji to tell Amado, or at the very least tell Kashin Koji what goes down. Now, will this cause some type of friction? More than likely, just understanding KAWAKI's personality and the potential that this conversation might spark something between him and Boruto. He may go to Boruto and be like, I know how you're so strong. Kashin Koji's been telling you all the things future yourself will learn, but now I'm not confused as to how you even knew my power was limited, because that's something Kashin Koji told you as well. Well, now I need Kashin Koji to tell me the truth. How strong will I fully become in the future? And this will be the type of way that Amado will need and use in order to get a better control and better handling on this guy KAWAKI, because as the time has been slowly going by, more and more into TBV, KAWAKI is becoming more bold in his stance against Amado, and he needs to figure out a way to regain control, not necessarily on surface, because we know Amado is the type of guy that likes to play behind the scenes, but more so in a manipulative standpoint, where KAWAKI is still in a position where he feels he's in control and he has the handle on Amado, but everything is simply going according to Amado's plan. So this guy definitely knows what's going down with this guy Kashin Koji, at the very least in terms of him getting KAWAKI to come back to the lab to discuss things. I believe it's somehow, some way getting KAWAKI on his side, on his same wavelength of thinking, of convincing Kashin Koji, or at the very least getting this data or information out of Kashin Koji. Now, unethical and unmoral as this guy Amado is, I will not put it past him for him somehow, some way to convince KAWAKI to get a DNA sample from Kashin Koji, to get something from Kashin Koji, because maybe he believes Koji is avoiding him for a reason. He has to take into account, well, if he already sees so many futures, has he seen this future where I'm plotting to basically get his future prediction ability, or basically to get him on my side? So there's so many things that Amado has to take into account now that he knows for sure Koji can see the future, but also he has a window to operate because he heard Koji basically explain the entire thing, which is why I said you don't give someone like Amado a piece on the chessboard that allows him to think he now has a potential chance to gain control, because he knows there's a window of opportunity where Koji doesn't have updates, where Koji basically has to see how events unfold before he can confirm which future they're actually in. And that is the window of opportunity for Amado to operate in, and for him to convince KAWAKI fully to get on his side and to manipulate him in a sense to where they can either get Kashin Koji to reveal this information, to feel like Kashin Koji needs to reveal this information, or to forcibly somehow, some way extract this information from Koji. I believe my best reasoning for Koji staying away from Amado Amado is simply because he needs to avoid being shut down. Because once he gets shut down, who knows? Because now that Koji is awakened ability, all Amado needs to do is access his data and he can do whatever he wants, whether that be transfer the ability to another person, enhance it, decrease it, limit it, or basically manipulate it to where Kasha now has to obey Amado's every single word. So let me know how your thoughts, comments, and concerns about this will go, and what the essential potential conversation with Amado and this guy KAWAKI, how will that go, and how will it automatically correlate and relate to this guy Kasha. Like I said, it's simple. He heard the future breakdown ability, and now he has an idea that sparked in his brain. All he needs is to get KAWAKI on board, and things are going to start rolling. That's how I'm seeing things, and that's how essentially it played out to me once we see this guy Amado approach KAWAKI last chapter. So let me know your thoughts, comments, concern on this. It's your boy Black Chat 3, long face, skinny body. Holla at your boy. I'ma holla at y'all. Black Chat out. Yes, sir. Ski.